to today's edition of Last Call. The show is writing itself. UIndy sports over the weekend, pretty phenomenal. We're going to start with UIndy football. I've got Zoe Derrick here, the wide receiver for UIndy, leads the team in all major categories. He's also the GLVC Offensive Player of the Week. Scored 2 touchdowns over the weekend. A big reason why UIndy beat Truman State 28-14. Zoe, a great win. Walk me through kind of the adversity you guys had to go through. Started down 14, came back and scored those 28 unanswered.
Well, being down 14 was obviously a tough task. It's nothing that our team hasn't done before. We've been down to pretty good teams. And we just gotta, we gotta keep going. Our coach, talked to us in the locker room, and it's like nothing new. We haven't not done that before, so we just gotta keep going.
What was that conversation like with Coach in the locker room at halftime that really got you guys fired up? Because the next drive coming out was a 5-play touchdown drive.
Really was just knowing we gotta play our game. We can't go out there and do anything different. We gotta stick to what we know. We knew we had to run the ball. We knew we had to, do our assignments of blocking and different stuff like that. But we just knew we had to keep going. We already knew down 14 wasn't too big for us to come back from.
What do you think the biggest change was at halftime going in the second half, whether it be for what you guys did offensively or what you saw from the defense?
I feel like there wasn't a lot of changes that we did in terms of scheme or anything like that. We knew we had to come play our game, and the first half wasn't who we are as a team. We knew that, when we came out, we had to be on fire. We had to hit the ground running, and we couldn't waste any time.
So you specifically lined up at wide receiver. What were the biggest challenges that you faced, especially in that first half where it was kind of a slow start for the team?
Really just the snow being on the ground. It was slick. Gloves being wet. It was tough at times. Just try to dry my hands off as much as possible. Just try to focus on ball security, different stuff like that. Just being focused on those little things because, those things change the game.
So when you're going into the game, the winner wins the GLVC title, and you get a shot at the playoffs. What was the mentality like for you guys? Was it more of a nervous kind of setup? What was the mentality going into the game and through that pregame warm-up?
It was definitely knowing we had to come out and execute. It was like kind of all over nothing, So if you win the conference, you go into the playoffs. If you don't, you go home with no ring at all,
Mm-hmm.
So we knew what we had to do. Truman's a really good team, but we knew we had what it took to beat them.
It's your second time being on this team with that GLVC title. What is kind of the difference between this year and in that spring season, kind of how you guys found that success compared to maybe last year where it wasn't as much of a successful year?
So, we already knew that, a lot of the younger guys that were, younger on that team was going to have to take a bigger role in the team this year. In both of those championships, we had to beat Truman to win them. Just different stuff like that. When, we came up into being as juniors and seniors, we know we got to take a bigger role in the team.
Mm-hmm.
We had to go to work in the summer, different stuff like that.
So you've got the playoffs coming up. Walk me through yesterday, 5 o'clock, the selection show comes on. Were you guys all watching it together? What was that like, and what was your reaction to seeing that Pittsburgh State's going to be the team you drive to?
We were all in the team room together watching it, and everybody had their phones out recording different stuff like that. We were all excited. For me, it's my first time going to the playoffs here, at UIndy.
Mm-hmm.
We were so excited to be able to get to that point or in our careers where we're getting opportunities to go to national championships and different things like that. It's just really exciting. We love the opportunity to be able to go show who we are.
Yeah, I love that. Coming into this season, you've got a lot of new additions to the wide receiver room, and there's a lot of players that are very good in that room with you. Obviously, you're the leader of it. You lead the team in all the categories, and you're the unquestioned number one. But what has it been like this year, kind of trying to spread some of that workload where it's not just one guy getting all the catches? You guys all collectively as a unit are performing really well. What's that been like?
Honestly, our coaches do a really good job at spreading stuff out, getting people different looks, and getting the ball who they want, who they think can make plays. They do a really good job at it. They run the ball a lot, but we also throw the ball as well too. I feel like they're doing a really good job at evening it out and getting whoever when they want to make plays the ball.
Most of the football players that I interview tower over me, but we're about the same height. What's that like for you? You're out there on the field, you're one of the smaller guys, but obviously one of the fastest guys, and you find success. What's that like for you not being that giant physical specimen?
Honestly, it's just knowing what you have, knowing what you can do, trusting yourself, trusting your abilities. I've never been the tallest guy ever, even all the way from Little League all the way to now. It's just trusting what I have, trusting my trainer, trusting my coaches, different things like that. I know they're going to put me in a position to make plays and just try to trust them and do what I can do.
Yeah, true inspiration for those guys. Maybe myself 10 years ago, the smaller guys, seeing that there is success in smaller football players. So kudos to you. And a great win over the weekend. Wish you the best coming up in this upcoming weekend, and I hope that you keep playing the next few weeks after that. Good luck chasing that national title.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate it. More next here on Last Call. And a big thank you goes to Alonzo Derrick for coming and having that conversation with us. We appreciate his time. And, of course, he had such a great game. So did all of UIndy. We talked about it, the score in that interview, 28-14. But just how about reiterate that? Let's take a look at some of the highlights here, where there were no highlights for UIndy in that first half, right? Because it was just such a poor start for them. Truman State scored the first 2 touchdowns. You go into halftime down 14-0, and it was just a completely different UIndy team coming into the second half.
Tale of two halves. I mean, that's kind of how the story turned out last year against Truman. Truman's a solid squad. They're very good, very well coached. Greg Nesbitt is a great head coach. But, man, UIndy came out firing on all cylinders. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it was just interesting to see kind of the difference between the two halves where, and of course the snow played a big part. You heard Alonzo talk about that quite a bit, where they came out, it wasn't really expecting that Saturday snow. It was supposed to wait until Sunday to come. It snowed literally all morning from 6 a.m. to right before kickoff at 2. Left the field completely covered, that poor conditions, and it was just so many times, especially for UIndy in that first half, where they dropped the ball. And take a look here. That was called an incomplete pass because McNeil's caught it. Watch the replay. He catches it, does not have full possession, doesn't make a football move, and it gets knocked out, right? So that's basic. That's how football works. Incomplete pass. Never had possession. A couple plays later, here's what happened. The same thing goes to, at this point, it was Jeremiah Lee. Same thing. Oof. Is that not the exact same play? 2 plays later, and they called it a fumble that Truman State took back, scored 3 plays later.
You know a hit like that hurts in the cold. But these are the games that you live for as a football player. You know, you live for the cold, rainy, sloppy, like muddy games. And this happened to be one of them, and it turned out in UIndy's favor.
It was such a special day. You can't write anything better than that. In the snow, the winner wins the championship. That's exactly what UIndy did. Now GLVC champions. Their 8th time since the conference started playing football in 2012. 10 years, and they've won 8 of these GLVC championships.
It's big time. It's big time. Unfortunately, we saw Torrey come back and try and get it going. Decided it didn't feel right, so Jaquan stepped back in for Toriano Clinton, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah, he played a great game. It was really impressive. We just saw one there. Jeremiah Lee scored a rushing touchdown. Buchanan had a rushing touchdown. But Alonzo Derrick had 2 touchdowns. Leads the team on the year in all these categories, but on the game as well. Most receptions, most touchdowns, most yards. And it really was in the second half when they would throw just a little 5-and-ins, little short little routes that just get kind of the offense going, get the quarterback comfortable. And that's really what led to such a successful day in that second half. It was kind of just the difference between let's not just run the ball failing twice on first down and second down and then go for a deep shot on 3rd and 9 that fails. They did a really good job mixing up those play calls. The first 2 plays of the drive were typically passes, short passes. A lot of them went to Derrick, and he really made them pay.
Well, and that goes towards, you know, Conkling's kind of a newer quarterback back in the system, hasn't gotten
Keep
much
an eye on
time
this one here.
Starting.
Down by 7, trying to drive, and it's Cavante Houston who takes it to the house. Houston, the GLVC Defensive Player of the Week. Derrick's the Offensive Player of the Week in the conference, and that's a big reason why Houston was able to. Took it all the way back. The final score was 28-14 there, but Truman State was trying to tie it up with 3 minutes left. It was a much closer game than what that 14-point spread suggests.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game for UIndy. Obviously, conference championship doesn't get much better than that. Hopefully, you want to move on and carry that on to the playoffs, to the Division II national title playoffs, and we'll see. They go on to take on the undefeated MIAA champions, Pittsburgh State in Kansas. It was today when I found out that Pittsburgh State was in Kansas.
Pretty interesting, huh?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next week. We'll give you the recap of how that game goes. This game was not the only one that we called and broadcasted over the weekend for UIndy TV. We had 4 others, right? Let's start with the 2 UIndy women's basketball games that we had broadcasted, starting with UIndy's game against Malone.
But she had
not quite the start the UIndy's women's basketball team wanted. They started 0-2 on the year after they lost to Malone and lost to Ashland, which we'll show you in a little bit as well.
Yeah, and this was kind of a demoralizing loss in the sense that they were in the game the entire time.
Last year's GLVC all-freshman team.
Just couldn't keep up.
30 seconds left to play in the opening period.
You know,
the dish down to number 3, Caroline
Jacaitis,
Jacaitis, and she puts it up in school.
2 completely different games, though. We see here they scored 19 first quarter points, ended up having the lead going into the quarter break, and it was just such a close game against a good Malone team, right? It was a GMAC GLVC crossover. They played well against Malone, were in the game the entire time, just couldn't finish it out. Ashland, though, was the other way around, where they weren't in the game at all. They scored 2 points in the first quarter it was just kind of a really tough performance. The full court trap really was the Achilles heel for this team, and it was just kind of a struggle that second game. But, I mean, against Malone, they played pretty promising. They were back and forth the entire game.
I mean, the score was tied 6 times. The lead changed 10 times in this game. As you said, it was back and forth. There was a moment, as you can see, where Malone got up by double digits. But UIndy got right back into it. You know, they forced some turnovers. They hit some key shots, big-time shots. Just couldn't finish it, though.
Yeah, it was really good to see them able to hang around in that game on Friday. Ashland wasn't the same, but Ashland obviously the 5th-ranked team in the nation too. So you're not going to have a whole lot of success here. As we see some of the Ashland highlights, started 21-3. Had a nice highlight there, but all for nothing because UIndy ended up losing that one pretty handily.
Yeah, that Ashland team is one of the best women's basketball teams that I've seen in Division II.
Look at that, though. Embarrassing across the timeline. Didn't amount to much, but it was a nice little momentum builder to start.
Nice little step-back 3 from Alani Williams-Harris. Yeah. They have the pieces there to maybe go on and win a good number of games, but they just couldn't put together 4 straight quarters of good basketball.
The loss to Malone was by 6 points, 88-82. Good showing on offense, and then they fell to Ashland 87-49, so not quite the same level of play at the end of that game.
Yeah, in turnovers. Turnovers were a big storyline, not in the traditional sense. Turnover numbers were fairly similar, but the points off turnovers, UIndy couldn't capitalize off those Ashland turnovers.
Different story for the men's team, though. UIndy's men's basketball started their season against Ohio Dominican. They played Lake Erie as well, and we see some of the highlights from both games here together. Against Lake Erie, it was a bit of a slow start, and we see here it was 7-2, ended up getting back in the game, and they won both games. Really looked pretty good. Ohio Dominican, they won 81-39. Yes, I said that right, 81-39. And against Lake Erie, it was 78-65. So 2 big wins, double-figure wins for both, and it was just such a dominating performance for the weekend.
I mean, they just rolled over that Ohio Dominican team. That was not the best team that I've ever seen on a Division II floor, that's for sure. But, you know, UIndy kept the Panthers in check the entire game, defensively, forcing turnovers, you know, getting out and running on the fast break. And, you know, that's what won the game for them against Ohio Dominican, for sure.
Yeah, and it was really encouraging to see against both teams, good defense and a really potent offense, scoring 80 points on average over the weekend. So it's pretty impressive for UIndy men's basketball, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the season is going to bring for them. Obviously, these aren't the best teams in the GMAC. They were picked 6th and 10th, respectively, on the weekend between ODU and Lake Erie. But they blew out 2 GMAC opponents, and it could be a pretty good season for UIndy. And, of course, they're picked number 1 in the GLVC by the coaches, so it definitely makes things a bit more of a target on UIndy's back, but I think they're going to be able to pull through. They're a good team this year.
Yeah, they are. Then they've got a deep bench. They've really reloaded talent-wise. You know, went after the transfer portal, got some key recruits in, and kept a lot of the key contributing guys from last year. Of course, Corey Miller Jr.'s gone. He was back in attendance at the game, but you know, they look like there's an excitement on campus around the team.
Yeah, you do lose 2 of your top scorers and top leaders in Miller Jr. and D. Montgomery. They both graduated. They're gone. But they have so many good transfers that come in. And obviously, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th best players on the rosters returning, and now they've got another season under their belt. They've got more leadership. They've got another year in the system. But these transfer players played so well. It is really fun to see. Jarvis Walker being one of them.
Yeah, didn't miss a beat. Didn't miss a beat at all. Knew the offense, knew their role in the offense, and knew the role on defense. So that's exactly what you want to see from guys who are coming into a new system and still trying to learn it.
UIndy plays Division I Western Kentucky University on Tuesday on the road. That's just an exhibition game, though. Doesn't count towards the schedule, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're within single digits of that D1 team by the end of the game.
Well, you know, we saw it in exhibition games last year against Butler. They almost knocked Butler
defeated
off.
Butler. Not saying a whole lot because it's Butler basketball from last year, but you're right.
It's a Division I opponent, though, you know?
Yeah, and I'm excited to see how they play against Western Kentucky. They're not back at home until December 1st, though. We'll have that game on UINDY TV, but they do have a bit of a road stretch here, 4 straight road games.
Yeah, 4 straight road games, but they're carrying over the momentum from a dominant homestand. And Jacoby Robinson, man, he was fantastic in both of those games. Of course, against Lake Erie, he came away with a double-double, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 for 8 from 3, though. 3-pointers is this team's calling card this year. And that's kind of strange. It's something we haven't seen in the past where you have multiple guys that are capable of hitting 2, 3, 4 5 threes in a game, and it's a big boost to your offense.
Not only just guys that can hit threes, but they're big guys. You've got 2 forwards, and you mentioned Robinson. Sean Craig, a freshman, 3 for 3 that first game from downtown, and he was 3 for 5 or something in that area for the second game. So he had himself a great day shooting from behind the arc too. And these are big guys, so it's hard to defend.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jarvis Walker earlier. I think he's going to be a key piece off the bench for the whole season. You never know, he might crack the starting lineup too.
Yeah. And not to mention Bruno Williams, who transferred in after being second team on GLVC with Lewis last season, led the team in scoring the year before. They've got some good players here.
They do.
Also, kudos, and we'll kind of solemnly end the season here for UIndy men's soccer and women's volleyball. Kudos to them for a great year, right? They lose in their tournaments over the weekend. Their season ends, but they had a great season, and it was a lot of fun to watch the games we were able to call.
Yeah, men's soccer, of course, losing to Lewis, where Bruno Williams transferred from. They lost 2-1. It was a tough go of things. They got up early, 1-0, and then in that second half of action, they just couldn't get anything rolling, and Lewis really got on them with 2 goals.
So we're going to finish the season with a 10-5-3 record. Kind of started the season slow, really came on strong, thought that they had a real good chance of getting in that GLVC championship, winning it, but a tough Lewis team that beat him earlier in the year. So congratulations, though, to first-year head coach Gabe Hall. Did a good job coming in and really leading this team to the promised land almost. They played really well down the stretch.
And, with John Higgins departing for Xavier, that's a big shoes to fill. He really did a great job in his role, and Gabe Hall stepped up, and props to coach.
Similarly, with UIndy's volleyball team over the weekend, they lost in the GLVC tournament. They won the first set against Rockhurst, and then the Hawks came back and won the next 3 sets, so they fell 3-1 in the 4th set there. But again, another great season. A lot of great players, some good senior leadership for this team that they're going to seed apart, but it was a successful season for the volleyball team here at UIndy.
There's stuff to build on. There's always going to be stuff to build on, but there's positives that they can take out of these performances. They finished just a game under 500 in conference play. I mean, this is a tough conference to win in.
Yeah.
You won 6 games out of 12. That's a positive in my mind. So hopefully the seniors graduating laid the groundwork enough for the younger kids to step up and really have a good season next year.
Again, congratulations to UIndy's football team for winning the GLVC championship, and they'll play on Saturday. That's all for UIndy Sports. When we come back, Division I football, including Purdue, Notre Dame with wins. That's next here on Last Call.
Award-winning news coverage. Brought to you by ethical journalists that care about you. We have you covered on crime, latest on sports, and the best in entertainment. This is UIndy TV News.
Back here on Last Call, let's talk about some positives in college football over the weekend. Let's start with Purdue. Played a then-ranked Illinois team, and everyone thought that it'd be Illinois' game to win, but Purdue came in and got the win. How about that?
They did. And this is a very good Illinois team, really good on the ground, not so great through the air. But, man, I thought that the big men in the trenches really did everything they needed to do for Purdue to win this game. They did not give up a sack the entire game. They gave Aiden O'Connell time and room to operate in.
Yeah, and when they did that, he played really well. He had 237 yards and 3 touchdowns. It was one of those days from O'Connell like we saw early in the season, led to this 31-24 victory.
He threw some strikes, too, fit some balls in tight windows. A lot of those throws, like a 32-yard strike to Charlie Jones that I'm sure you'll see coming up. And Payne Durham looked very, very good as well. There was one play where I believe O'Connell, I think it's right here actually, he just puts it where nobody else but Payne Durham can reach it.
That's a beautiful catch.
How about him keeping those feet in bounds, man? That is something else.
It was a hard-fought game. We see here Illinois is coming back trying to tie it up, and they do. So it wasn't just like Purdue cakewalked Illinois, right? It was a good game. It really improves Purdue's case for a better bowl game now as they move on to 6-4.
And the big thing coming out of this win is Purdue now has the head-to-head tiebreaker against Illinois. So the way that the Big Ten West is playing out right now, you will have I believe Minnesota's up there, Purdue's up there. Illinois is 1 win above all of them. But assuming Purdue wins out their next 2 games against Northwestern and my Hoosiers, who probably will not give them much of a game, they could realistically be sitting at the top of the Big Ten West.
Let's talk about those Hoosiers. We see. I don't know if I have words.
We could not talk about it.
I don't have words.
No, it's not good. They got dismantled. Just dismantled, man. This Ohio State is Ohio State, and IU is IU. You understand what I'm saying when I say that?
I think that's all that needs said, right?
I mean, C.J. Stroud looked like the Heisman Trophy winner. Threw for 5 touchdowns, I believe, on the day. My goodness. Of course, he found Marvin Harrison Jr., future Colt, maybe. Found him in the end zone one time. But, man, the run game for the Buckeyes was on. The pass game for the Buckeyes was on. It's the story of the game.
56-14, that final score. Some positive news inside the state. How about Notre Dame? They go and they play Navy, and they played pretty well, right? They get that win. They were ranked. They continue this ranked streak. They climbed up to 18th on the AP poll. We'll show you that here in a little bit. But it was just an all-around great day for Notre Dame, and they've had a few of these. They've stringed together some really good wins of late.
Yeah, they've looked good in the past 2-3 games. They've earned this ranking. They're just fun to watch. How about that catch right there? That is a ridiculous catch behind the back of the defender from Braden Lindsey. I have no words like you did about IU. That was insane.
Beautiful.
That's an athlete right there against some of our of America's new midshipmen. Wow, what a catch!
A really impressive win for Notre Dame as they move on to 7-3, and again they're ranked 18th in the AP poll. Looking at some of the other teams, obviously Georgia, they remain undefeated. They remain number 1. Ohio State right there behind them at 2. Michigan at 3. So it's a tight 1, 2, 3. But then TCU, currently ranked 4th in the AP poll. Tennessee slides in at 5th. LSU at 6. Keep an eye on Alabama, though. All the way down at 8. They did creep up 1 spot after defeating Ole Miss. Bit of a close game there, but they're sitting there right now at 8. You don't see that very often from an Alabama team.
It's weird. It's strange. It's very strange, but you never know. Last 2 weeks of the NCAA football season produced some craziness. Ole Miss is great. They're a good team. I think they're very well coached. Alabama over them. Maybe that moves them up next week when, off the top of my head, I don't remember who they're playing next week, but I'm sure they will steamroll whoever it is. They're pissed. They're coming for blood.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just weird seeing Alabama down at 8th, but Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan at the top, that's nothing new.
It's good to see my TCU boys in the 4th spot. I really like Max Duggan.
Let's talk about the NFL and the Colts getting their first win with their new interim coach. That's next here on Last Call.
Hey, it's Giselle here on 88.7 WICR.
88.7 The Diamond, the only jazz and classical station in Indianapolis, completely led by the students of the University of Indianapolis. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn app, FM radio, HD radios, or even on our website at wicronline.org, a different kind of public radio.
The Indianapolis Colts might be good at football. How about that? Jeff Saturday came in. They traveled to Las Vegas. We were all laughing at him all week, including on this show. Why Jeff Saturday? Why? He's just a drinking buddy of Jim Irsay, but instead he's able to come in and actually coach a team that had 4 times the offense they did the week prior when Frank Reich got fired.
I mean, Jonathan Taylor's back. Matt Ryan looked like a good quarterback. He looked like a quarterback that's been to a Super Bowl.
How about that? They announced him as the backup quarterback coming into the weekend, which was like, yeah, Ellinger started the last 2 weeks. So they said he was going to be the backup, and he comes out, warms up with the starter, starts the game, a bit of a gamesmanship there. I kind of like it from Saturday. But he comes in and just plays with his hair on fire. Look at this. Jonathan Taylor is back, and he goes all the way to the house here in the 3rd quarter late. This is one of the big reasons that the Colts were able to get ahead and stay ahead. A very impressive touchdown rush from a guy who we thought would be a lot better than he has been this season. But maybe Jeff Saturday, being that former center, the run game guy, maybe he can unlock Taylor again.
Yeah, 147 yards for Taylor. Book that. That's awesome to see, getting him involved again. How about this guy, Devontae Adams? I think he looked excellent in this game.
Down Hunter Renfro, down Darren Waller, and it didn't matter because Devontae Adams came in and did his thing. But look at this. Down by a point, they came in, and how about this? Squeaking through 3 different guys and Paris Campbell into the end zone. It was just a great offensive showing for Indianapolis. I thought that they would win coming into the weekend just because Vegas is that bad, and me being a Broncos fan, I see them quite a bit. But I did not think that they would put together 25 points. And look at that.
Those stops.
Stephon Gilmore. That was an impressive play on defense to win them the game. Jeff Saturday, have yourself a day.
Yeah. Congratulations to Coach Saturday.
We did get to hear from him in the locker room after the game, talked to Parks Frazier, the new play caller. Let's hear what Saturday had to say.
Can't tell you how proud I am of each and every one of you. Coaches, players, staff, everybody stepped up. All 3 phases, man. Things we talked about. Offense, ran it for over 200. Threw it for over 200. Defense, shut 28 down, 77 yards rushing. Had to make a play on 17 at the end. What'd we do? Make a play at the end. Make a play at the end, man. Hey, make a play at the end, man. Who goes hardest the longest, man? That's how this game is decided. The most physical football team won today.
Colts get that win. They move on to now 4-5-1. Maybe there's a chance. They're second in the AFC South. Maybe there's a chance they can put together a run here and Jeff Saturday can show off.
What a weird division that. It's weird.
The game of the year. My camera guy right here is wearing a Vikings jersey, and for good reason. Comes in celebrating after Josh Allen, a bit of a UCL injury on his elbow. Kind of worried about how he would come in and play. Kirk Cousins, no one had any worries about him at the end of this game. The Vikings are 8-1. They're a good team, and the Bills fall to 6-3 now after the Vikings win in overtime, 33-30. What a game this was, back and forth, and it was an all-around impressive one, and one that won me some money as well. I picked Vikings plus 6.5 last Monday, knowing that there's no shot that it would be the Bills' touchdown game. So
how about this guy? How about Dalvin Cook? He year in and year out has been one of the best backs in the league. He just continues to impress me with every game going forward.
Yeah, and he's had some stretches where a bit injured, right? Not able to play to his full health, but today was one of those days where he was able to come out and thump this Bills defense, but still having to face some adversity. The Bills led for most of the game until towards the end. Look at this. A doink missed field goal would have been 23-30 at that point. Made a big difference here.
Yeah. I mean, rallied down from 17 points.
Look at that catch.
Justin
Are you kidding
Jefferson,
me?
man.
Justin Jefferson, look at this. Reaches up, 2 hands the defender has, doesn't matter. Jefferson.
I was giving that same cameraman a little bit of crap for saying this is catch of the year. I think I'm going to have to join the bandwagon. That's catch of the year.
It's probably catch of the year, and it's an impressive one. Look at this one, though. They don't get the touchdown. The game's over, right? 44 seconds left on the clock. It's going to be Bills' ball at the goal line because Cousins can't get in the end zone. Vikings fans kicking themselves right now. The Bills are going to win 27-23. No, the fumbled snap at the goal line. Suddenly, the Vikings are right back in on it.
Wow.
What a crazy sequence.
Insanity.
But that's not the end of the insanity here, right? So they're going to decide that the Vikings have the ball. Here in just a few moments, they'll end up scoring 30-27. 5 seconds left. The Bills do it with Josh Allen, and they squeeze it in. Very impressive. And in overtime, the finish ends up being that 33-yard field goal attempt that the Vikings hit and win 33-30. A very impressive day for the Vikings, who, again, now they improve. The best team. Look at this, however. Patrick Peterson, his second interception of Josh Allen of the day. We'll see that here in just a few moments, but it was just one of those days for the Vikings, and they're for real.
They're for real, for sure. Yeah.
What a day for really all sports. It was a great weekend in sports, and we appreciate you guys staying along and listening to the show. UIndy, again, congratulations to the GLVC champion UIndy football team. It was an impressive weekend, and a lot of fun in the NFL and college football as well.
The champs, man. The champs. Headed to Pittsburgh State. We'll see how it turns out for them on Saturday.
Catch us next week right here on Last Call, 5 o'clock next Monday.